Hey guys, this is Anthony Morganti from AnthonyMorganti.com. This is episode 23 of the video series where I critique and process your image. In this episode, we're taking a look at this image from Mario. He told me it's a sanatorium in Belgium, an abandoned sanatorium in Belgium. It's a pretty cool shot, and I think this video is going to be really short because there's not a lot that needs to be done with this image. And the reason why I chose it is because there's not a lot to be done, and typically once you're out and you're taking a lot of pictures and you're a little bit more of an experienced photographer, you probably find that you framed it just about perfectly. The exposure is pretty much perfect, and you don't have to do a lot of post processing. So I wanted to make sure I did at least one video in this series where we're not doing a ton of post processing. We're just tidying it up a little bit, I guess, or making a JPEG out of it or TIFF or whatever we're going to use it for. But it's a really nice image. The composition's really cool. I love how this kind of leading line of the walkway is coming out from the corner, and the whole kind of building is wrapping around. So it all just leads you through the image. So very nicely done. Of course, who likes the car? The car is there, nothing much you could do about that. Typically, you might want to take that into Photoshop and get rid of it. And just for the heck of it, maybe at the end we'll try to get rid of it in Lightroom. But, um, you know, I would prefer the car not to be there. But, you know, other than that, I mean, I think it's a perfect shot. It's perfectly exposed. His camera settings were perfect. He was at f8, ISO 100. It's a 40 millimeter f2.8 lens. So again, when I always talk about 2 to 4 stops up from wide open, so f8 is perfect. 1/50th of a second, which is you could still hand hold the shot. Now, where to focus? Now, I didn't check. This is a Nikon, so we could do the plug-in, show focus points that I talked about in previous episodes. Okay, I don't see any focus point. He must have used manual. Yeah, he used a manual focus mode. So he manually focused with this, which is pretty cool. You know, a lot of times um, it might just be easier in some instances to manually focus. I know photographing some um, certain athletic activities, like sports and things, I find sometimes, especially if people are moving, it's easier for me to manually focus than try to use focus tracking and things like that. Now, of course, that has nothing to do with this image. So, you just kind of eyeball it and manually focus. Now, where should you focus? Well, I'd use single point focusing, and I'd probably focus somewhere up in here somewhere. Just not all the way back in the scene, not all the way forward in the scene, just about a third of the way into the scene. So somewhere in here, I just grab focus there, and then I think you'd get more than enough depth of field to have the image clear. You could see using manual focus, Mario did fine. You could see this wall here is perfectly focused. The trees way off in the distance. There's good focus on those. The roof back here. So perfect. There's really not much to talk about. Really well done. Now, as far as processing, it's not a ton to do. As I mentioned, we're just going to go to lens corrections right away and remove chromatic aberration and enable the profile corrections. We're going to make sure the lens popped up, and it did. So then we're going to go back up to the basic panel. The white balance is good. I don't have to worry about any of that. I want to bring some detail out in the sky. The limitation, of course, of the camera sensor, it doesn't have as much dynamic range as our eyes. And I guarantee when Mario was standing there, he could see the clouds more distinctly in the sky. So we're going to bring highlights down all the way just to bring out some detail in the sky. I'm going to bring up shadows so we could get more detail in the shadows, especially in the darker part of these trees, because in a minute I'm going to be adding some contrast with the tone curve, and that's going to darken all this stuff up. So I want to just open it up now. We'll come back to whites and blacks. I'll come back to clarity. I'm going to add some vibrance, just a touch, maybe up to 10, and I am going to add just a little saturation on this shot. That's too much. Very fussy, I guess, with color. I don't like to make them overly garishly colorful. I want them to be more natural, especially this shot. Um, so +8, +4, just maybe colored it up a little bit, colored it nicely, or just, those colors are probably there. It's just, like I said, the sensors of the cameras don't capture it all the time. So we're going to go down to the tone curve, and we're going to look at medium contrast. Then we'll look at strong contrast. Definitely like strong contrast. We'll go back up to the basic panel. I'm going to get a quick white point by holding in the shift key and double clicking on the word whites. A quick black point by similarly doing that to blacks. And as I look at it, so far so good. Looks good. We're going to add some clarity now. And then usually at this point, I like to reassess. I'm going to bring clarity down just a touch. Okay, it might be just a tiny bit too bright, but I am going to probably do some targeted adjustments in the middle that might affect that. So I might come back and readjust whites and or highlights, but we'll see in a minute. So we're done with the basic panel, done with tone curve. I'm going to go to the HSL color and B&W tab, and I'm going to go to luminance, and I'm going to get the targeted adjustment tool by clicking right here. And I'm going to darken the sky a little bit, so I'm going to click on the bluer part of the sky with the left mouse button, then I'm going to just drag my mouse down to darken that sky slightly. And then I want to keep the targeted adjustment tool, and I want to go to the brighter part of the trees, and I want to make it just a little brighter. Now I'm moving up. Now I know when I click down on the left mouse button, you can't see what I'm doing. So right now, if I'm moving my mouse down and I'm dragging my mouse up. So what I'm doing is I want to make those yellows and greens that are associated in here a little brighter. And then I want to pick a darker green, let's say in here, and maybe drag down a little bit. I just want to make it balanced. And the reason why I'm doing this, I want to make kind of the parts that are more yellow than green. I want to make them a little bit more yellow. And the ones that are more green than yellow, I want to make even more green. So it gives a little more depth to the image. There's a lot of different types of trees in here, and they're not all uniformly colored. But when you look at the raw file, they tend to all look the same. So we want to bring out that detail. And a lot of times the targeted adjustment tool will help with that. So I'm still not real happy with it. So I'm going to fiddle with it a little more. You can just bear with me. And I got to be careful. I'm dragging here, but I might be overdoing the grass or some other aspects in the image, like in the picture of the building part or the part of the building. I don't want to make those too bright or too dark or anything like that. So kind of like that. It seems to have a lot of nice various tones throughout the trees now. So it adds that little bit more depth. I'm not going to do any split toning. We're going to go to detail. There's just a tiny bit of noise. There's a bird here. We'll get rid of that in a minute. I mentioned in numerous of these videos that if you have birds way off in the distance, get rid of them, because if you print the image especially, it'll look just like dirt. It doesn't look like a bird anymore. Even though you know it's a bird, it's better to just get rid of them. So I'm going to move the luminance noise reduction up to 50, and it really eliminated noise. I'm going to go down to 40. And noise is still gone at 40, so we're going to leave it there. I'm going to bring up sharpening pretty high. I think around 72 looks good. And we actually didn't barely introduce any noise in the sky. I'm going to mask the sky anyway, though. I'm going to hold the Alt or Option key in. It's Alt if you have a PC, Option if you have a Mac. And I'm going to move the masking slider to the right. What is white is being sharpened. What is black is not. So we're not sharpening a lot of the sky there. So I kind of like that. I think what we could finish it off with a vignette that is dark, that is very, very slight, like that. And I'd say that's it. I said, you know, it's done. There's not a lot to do with this image. Now, I mentioned we should probably zap out this bird, so we're going to get the spot removal tool. We're going to be on clone. We want feathering all the way up, and we want opacity all the way up. And I'm using a magic mouse. I'm just running my finger on it to adjust the size. If you have a PC with a mouse with a center wheel, you could adjust the size with the wheel. And we'll just click there. That looks good. So I think the image is done. Like I said, most of the time you don't have to do a ton of processing with images if you took care of it in camera. Um, you have it perfectly composed, so you don't have to do any cropping, and you have it perfectly exposed, so you don't have to really do a lot of um, like manipulations with the basic panel to try to get all the different tones looking proper. Now, as far as this car, that is something you probably would want to do in Photoshop. It would be easier, but just for the fun of it, let's open up the um, the spot removal tool, and I'm going to bring feathering down a touch, like to 40, and I'm going to make two passes, this way, down, that way, and we'll see what it comes up with. And it doesn't look right, but you try to move it over here is what we want. And that looks horrible. But what we could do, we could just mess with it a little. We could turn this off, and then we could get a smaller brush, and we could probably just make this a little softer in there. Oops, don't want to do that. Turn feathering all the way up. That'll help, maybe. Yeah, see? Yeah, it's not coming out that great. That looks worse. Probably should have never started that. I mean, I know I did it. You know I did it, but maybe some people won't think I did it because the grass isn't cut. It is kind of rough. So, I mean, that's something again you'd probably prefer to do in Photoshop. So that's it for this episode. Like I said, I wanted to do one that was kind of easy and just show you how I go about doing it. Most of my images really just taken in Lightroom and really quickly done. And no, I wasn't here, so I didn't see the scene, but I'm trying to imagine it in my mind's eye. A lot of times I know my camera is going to a lot of times mute the color, especially in the sky. Sky's going to come out a little overexposed, so the blue won't look as blue as it was when I was there. So there's little things you have to do in Lightroom to make it look like it looked when you were there. And that's pretty much what I was striving for in this image, and I hope that made sense. So that's it. This was a simple one. Thank you very much, Mario, for sharing your image with us, and thank you, everyone that watches my videos. I really do appreciate it. I'll talk to you guys soon.